there was so much conversation as to how it all went down and how it did work its way to Trey Lance being the guy chosen by your organization. Did this start where, like, hey, it's a weekly meeting, or it was just placed on your schedule? Coach and John want to talk to you. John Lynch, the general manager, sit down and they laid out, hey, we want to make a monster move up the draft board. Is that how it gets presented to you and you're part of this machinery here in the 49ers?
I think they saw the class, and there were definitely a number of guys that were intriguing. And just knowing that we wanted to be respectful to our current players. We didn't want to do anything, where we were having sort of sneaky meetings and trying to, be stealthy. Like, we wanted to just make sure, like, if we were going to do it, we're going to do it out in the open and make sure that we did the entire process and evaluated all the guys as thoroughly as possible and let everybody know here who that decision could affect. Like, this is what we're doing, and we're going to be very, very straightforward about it. And, there was a lot of meetings. There was a lot of, I can't remember how many guys and how many times that they saw each of the prospects sort of in person and going to pro days and things like that. But there were certainly a lot of things. And, I could tell fairly early on how focused Kyle was. And I just sort of pulled back, where instead of getting updates off of every time they watched film and, every time that they saw somebody in person or had a conversation, it was just like, look, when you guys are ready to sit down and make the decision, we'll get together the week of the draft. And that's sort of what John and Kyle decided. I can't remember the exact day, but I think we got together Monday before the draft. That was the final day that we got together.
But I'm hitting the Wayback Machine all the way to probably late February, early March, when that trade was made. Because, again, I know you're very prideful, as well you should, of putting together an organization after the turnover that you went through, that the coach and the general manager, and then you delegate. That's what they do. But I'm assuming, all that draft capital that gets moved around for a player that is going to eventually be your new starting quarterback does require your check mark, right?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
We had that conversation, but it was the check-ins in between were, right. You can tell how focused Kyle was.
Yes.
Where it was like, your decision week to week, day to day doesn't really matter. So I definitely shifted gears from there. So we tried to not. It was like one of those things where it's hard to not talk about it. But it was like, look, we're not going to put that on the agenda anytime we get together, because, Kyle can change his mind, based off of different things. And it wasn't worth it to try to go through it at that point. But if you go to the Wayback Machine, it was, this is the decision we're thinking about making. And if we do it, we're going to be bold. And again, I think it was important for us to really control our destiny. Mm-hmm. And know that we were going to get, we knew that we weren't going to get to the first pick. We were pretty certain that we weren't going to get to the second pick. So we knew that we wanted one of the next quarterbacks that were going to go. And we just talked about how to get there and what we were comfortable with. And again, having the amount of trust and respect that I do for John and Kyle makes it so much easier to make a decision like that.
Of course, I hear you. But so, in other words, you, Jed York, CEO of the 49ers, said yes to a trade based on what you heard from your coach and your general manager, who you trust implicitly, without knowing the name of the player that was going to eventually be spat out on the last Thursday of April. That literally is something you said, okay, go about your valuation. There was no player that they said, this is the guy who's in the leader in the clubhouse when the trade was made? What can you reveal about that?
No leader in the clubhouse. It was really, there were, you essentially knew who was going one, right? I think we all knew who was going one.
Right.
I don't know that you knew 100% who was going two, but you had a pretty good idea who was going two. So there were really, three guys plus, potentially a fourth if he didn't go to the Jets, mm-hmm. that you were really looking at. So it was really three guys plus another just in case he didn't go to the Jets. And I think they felt good about all of those guys. early on, and they're all intriguing. I think they're all going to be very successful guys in the NFL. I'd rather not play against them, but I don't get to choose who other teams' quarterbacks are. So that's something that's a rule change that I'd like to implement at some point.
It's Jed York here on the Rich Eisen Show. So, were you rooting for, like, not like you're grinding all 22, but did you have somebody that you wanted in mind and that you were glad that it came out, or what? Like,
I mean, I'm very glad how it came out. And again, I think I've said this before. It was a lot easier, to choose who you wanted versus who you didn't want, because you can make an argument for all 5 of the quarterbacks that went that they should have been the first quarterback that went. And there are things that you can debate about all of them, but I mean there's a lot to like about all the quarterbacks who were in this draft. And for me, like, I'm not studying their film the way that Kyle is or the way that John is. And in terms of the people, like, I think they're all great young men, and I think Trey is going to be fantastic. He's a phenomenal young man, but all the guys were. So it wasn't like, well, this is a great player, but there's a character issue. Like, there are no character issues with any of the guys. There were no off the field things. There's just, it was a very, very unique group of young men, and it was a really cool process.
And I think the world of Trey Lance. He was on the show 2 days before he became a 49er, and he literally had me at hello, and it's just, I can't believe he was.
He's awesome. Like,
I can't believe awesome. He was born in the year 2000, man. I just can't believe that.
It's that's a little weird that he was born in the year 2000, but we'll all get over that at some point.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.